hearing that Vikings today on RBLR Bulls. We really appreciate y'all tuning in. It's me and my wonderful co-host Jonathan. Jonathan, how you doing today? How you doing this week? I know it's been a busy sports week. So what's been going on, brother?
Yeah, no complaints. Anytime the Bucks get a win on Monday night, and even though the college football has been crazy, what a weekend it was outside of the Florida teams. The Georgia Tennessee game was crazy. There was a handful more games like that on Saturday. Clemson, Georgia Tech. So it's really hard to be in a bad mood when you get to watch college football / NFL football like 4 out of the 7 days in a week. So yeah, it's hard to find me in a bad mood nowadays.
No, I feel you, man. I feel you. Right now, it's a heck of a time to be a sports fan for sure. It's been fantastic. You got baseball season going on. It's coming down the stretch. So obviously the Rays, unfortunately, not involved. But the postseason race is heating up. So a lot of fun stuff. And like you said, a lot of really great college football. And the Bucks winning on Monday. Hey, if y'all are listening, I was on the Bucks show last night. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. You can find us on any social media platform as well at RBLR Sports. We'd really appreciate that. Obviously the Bulls weekend didn't go to plan. They kind of got trounced. They've come crashing back down to earth. It was 49-12. Not a great game, not a great showing. I was hoping for a little bit more competition. A 37-point loss, never a great thing, even against an elite team like Miami. Were there any concerns, Jonathan, that you saw out of this game moving forward for USF, or is it just kind of a wipe your hands like, hey, it's Miami?
Yeah, I think more of the latter, because when you look at it in a sense, it's this is what's supposed to happen. Like USF has a really good first 22 if you count offense, defense starters.
Right.
But I think in this game you saw, they don't have the depth that Miami has, right? That competitive depth is there. The competitiveness in the starters, right, that you need. But, when you get to teams in these power conferences, like they're rotating these defense linemen in like every third play, keeping them fresh, right? And when USF does that, it's just not the same talent as that first group. But again, you got to, for me, I look big picture. Like, you're a huge USF fan. If you're saying you go 2-1 during this 3-game stretch, like you're doing backflips, like absolutely. Exactly 100%. But things that are a little bit concerning: only running the ball for 40 yards on 1.5 yards per carry. Not great. I know it's Miami, and Miami I think has a top 5 defensive line in the country. Like I get it, but that's not concerning if you think the ceiling for USF is okay. Maybe winning the American, being the 28th best team in the country, right? If that's your concern, that's it's not a big deal. But for me, the expectation for USF now should be to make the playoff. And if as long as you don't lose the food, like we always talk about, you should be in a good spot. But USF, as good as Byron Brown is, they're a run first team, and they need to be able to run the ball effectively in order to get to the play action balls for Brown to hit them deep. It helps their tempo a little bit more when you be able to run the ball for those big chunk plays too. So that's the only part I find a little bit concerning. But I also think I told you guys before one of the first podcasts, I'm very high on Miami this year. So
me too.
I don't think anything else of USF. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, it's definitely kind of a wash your hands type of deal here. Like you said, Miami's got that elite depth of a big time program because they are a big time program. It's really tough to compete with, like you said, they're rotating in and out NFL players across the defensive and offensive line and the secondary, just across the board. It's just NFL caliber talent, and USF unfortunately doesn't have that. That's kind of the gap is pretty wide there, which is unfortunate. But then again, we said the same thing about the UF game, so I was expecting a little bit more competition. But to sustain that level of play, like to just be like white knuckle, like pedal to the metal, that's tough. That's a really hard thing to ask of any team, but in particular an American Conference team like USF. So yeah, like you said, their goals and aspirations should be a lot bigger than just like competing for the American. Like you said, if they're able to take care of business and win the games that they're supposed to win, I very much think they could be in the playoff conversation because those 2 wins are going to loom large, I think, at the end of the season. Like beating UF and Boise State, a really big deal, or at least it should be to the playoff selection committee. And if USF can win the American Conference, I think they have just as good a shot as any Power 5 or whatever it's called. I always get Power 5 and Group of 5.
I guess technically now it's Power 4 because rip the Pac-12, but
Right, rip the Pac-12, Power 4. They have
so,
as good a shot as any Group of 5 or Group of 6. I don't know, but a good a shot as any non-SEC or Big Ten school to make the playoff.
I agree.
I'm excited to see how USF can progress throughout the season, even regardless of this loss. But since we're speaking about the college football playoffs, the rankings came out this weekend, the AP poll. I know that was a huge controversy last week with a couple of voters just leaving USF off their top 25 entirely, which was very silly and, just led to a lot of kind of unnecessary discourse. But this week, I thought USF had even more of a gripe, to be quite honest. They were left off the AP poll entirely, like not even just a few ballots. Like they did not make the top 25. I get it. USF looked pretty rough against Miami. Losing by 30 plus points is never going to be a good thing. But I was a bit surprised that USF got knocked out of the top 25 entirely. Were you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I was very adamant last week that I think the top 25 is a joke, to be completely honest with you. But the people that do it think too much about the preseason expectation for the team. Doesn't matter. Through 3 weeks of the season, who's been the 25 best teams?
Right.
Like, I think Texas, I don't know what Texas is. Texas is like, I think they're still top 10, if I'm not mistaken. They're number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Texas has been awful this season.
Right.
Why are they number 8? Because they have a Manning at quarterback?
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. Texas talent profile is insane. They're a top 5 roster. We talk about top 10. They're a top 5 roster. Mm-hmm. But through 3 weeks of the season, which is what we should be ranking these teams by, them struggling in against UTEP, like I'm pretty sure that's who they played last week.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do, right?
Yeah,
I look at some of these teams like Michigan's ranked 21. They're 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Who have they beaten? Like New Mexico State at home. Say what you want about Florida. Florida is going to end up beating teams and people are going to be like, oh, wow, like, look at Florida. If it wasn't for 5 interceptions at Death Valley, Florida beats, I want to say probably, they beat LSU, and LSU is the number 3 ranked team in the country. So sure. I think that win's going to age very well for USF. And then, obviously for Boise, I think Boise was a little bit overranked as well in the preseason, but still, like, it's still a team that made the playoff last year. But for me, it's like you can pick up a ton of these teams. Like, I know we're going to get into Notre Dame a little bit. I credit teams that go out and play people. So sure. Would I rank Notre Dame? No. But am I incredibly appalled Notre Dame's ranked? No, because I think you should be rewarded somewhat for playing these teams. But like Michigan should not be ranked ahead of USF. You could argue that based off this season, a handful of these teams that are even undefeated should not be ranked ahead in front of USF. Do you know Penn State, the mighty Nittany Lions, who they have played this year? They've played 2. They've played 2. I don't even know if they're the FCS teams. They played Villanova in week 3, the powerhouse. Husky. No, I think my bad. I was thinking basketball. Now Villanova, right. I didn't even know reinstated their football program. Right. They're playing like Delaware in these schools through the first 3 weeks. And
Delaware's a year 1 D1 school.
Yeah, exactly. And USF's going and playing teams on the road, going to Florida, going to Miami, hosting Boise. So yeah, I think it's a shame that that USF is not in the top 25. It's ridiculous. I don't know if you know Josh Pate. He's one of the biggest college football voices. He has his own show. He ranked USF number 5 because you base it off going into last before the Miami game. What you've seen this season, and yeah, it makes sense if we're just based off what we've seen this season.
Right,
USF is, I think, in my opinion, still a top 15 team in the country.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. I love it. Yeah. I don't know if I'll go that crazy. I'm definitely top 25 USF. Yes. Yeah. I'm with you on. I'm with you on trying to balance more of, hey, what has a team done this season? Because it is incredibly, like you said, it's really frustrating to watch teams get ranked and go out there and to play, like you said, cupcake teams. But with a lot of those teams like Michigan and Penn State and Texas, like they're going to have a schedule that either they're going to put up or shut up type of thing. Like by week 8 or 9, they're going to have played some other really good teams and they'll either have won or lost. And so I have a little bit more, I don't want to say understanding, but I'm at least like like at least it won't last, or it will, and they'll deserve it. But with Notre Dame, what's difficult about that one is like you said, they did schedule two really tough teams off the bat. Like I give them full credit for that. But then after those two teams, like the only ranked team that they have moving forward is USC, and they're barely in the top 25. So I think what frustrates me about that situation is that Notre Dame is going to be ranked, and then they might not lose a game the rest of the season, but they're playing, like USC is their best opponent for the remainder of the season. So you're kind of banking on quality losses, that whole like nauseating phrase. So you're kind of banking on that to rank Notre Dame, and then they'll sneak into the college football playoff, and then they'll get walloped in round one. I know they made the national championship last year. I don't want to poo-poo Notre Dame too much, but it is a bit frustrating. But I definitely feel you on I think Texas is going to get embarrassed in some SEC games. Like I think they're going to face some really tough opponents, and they might lose some tough games because people, like you said, UF is considered maybe like bottom tier SEC team, but like they're still really talented. So they could very well, theoretically, if they played each other, like UF, I don't know if they do, but UF could theoretically beat UT.
They play each other in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. In 2 weeks. So they could very well go to tech, or they could match up and UF could beat them. Like there's a very real possibility that happens. I'm with you. I think Texas definitely kind of playing over their skis in terms of their rankings. So but luckily, that'll come to fruition, and UT will either prove us wrong or they'll prove us right. So I'm excited because there's just so many great games that are going to be happening over the whole season, really. So it's really exciting. But I know we've mentioned Texas and Penn State. Are there any other teams that you maybe thought were kind of maybe looking to get out of the top 25, or have we kind of mentioned all of them?
I think getting out is fine, but I just want to say real quick, if you were to switch USF and Notre Dame's like just their helmet, right? If you put a Notre Dame sticker on the USF schedule, Notre Dame is top 10 in the country. And I understand his brain recognition, but it shouldn't be. Like we should be ranking these teams based off what they've done this season. And
100%.
So to your point, yes, I agree with you. And I picked Texas to win the national championship in the preseason. So imagine I'm a little flabbergasted by their start. But just when I look at the rankings, like Vanderbilt, who's number 20, like I would rank them higher. Utah at number 16, like I would rank them higher. But a lot of these AP voters aren't watching Vanderbilt games. Like I bet you half these people don't even know that Vanderbilt went to Virginia Tech in week 2 and blew them out right as they played. They got a guy fired. They came up, exactly. Yeah. Ranky got fired, and so it's frustrating because it shouldn't matter with the college football playoff committee, but
it does.
Right. Base the rankings off because the college football playoff committee we talked about aren't watching the games too. They're like the AP voters, right? And I'm not going to act like I'm some expert on Texas Tech who I haven't seen play this year. But guess what? I don't have an AP vote, so it doesn't matter. I can just say that if I did have an AP vote, you would be for sure certain that I'd be watching some film on Texas Tech and their new $80 million roster that they have with other big oil donors and stuff. But I mean, for a team like USF that has to go out and play these schools in order to get noticed, it's frustrating. And all the diehard USF fans should be frustrated that. And even if they win out, they probably still won't be ranked at the end of the day. And like, I bet you if Florida goes and beats Miami this weekend, Florida's going to be ranked before USF. And that's just the way, unfortunately, that it is. Because if you take that Gator logo and you put it on the USF logo, Florida would be ranked right now. Like it's unfortunate. You can say that with any team, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Michigan, whatever you want to say. And like I said, it shouldn't be like that, but it's the world that USF is gonna have to live in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm right there with you. And it's tough because like in my mind, like I know you're kind of a Gators fan, so I apologize, but man, I hate UF. Like I cannot stand UF, but I'm going to be pulling for them because like the better that they play, the better that win looks for USF. Like you said, so I was kind of pulling for UF this past weekend because like, it was kind of rough to see Lagway throw all those interceptions, but also like, oh, well, I got to give a lot of crap to my Gator friends, but it was definitely kind of tough, but man, if they would have gone and beaten LSU,
well, I'll tell you what, you'll have plenty of chances for Florida to get a big time win for USF. I mean, they play 100%. The freaking NFC East and during their schedule. So, but and it's the same for Boise, right? You can say it for all these teams now, like Miami going forward. When Miami plays Florida State in I think it's the second week of October or something, first week of October, like if Miami dominates Florida State, that trends for USF better. Like if USF goes 11-1 and Florida ends up 8-4 and Miami is 11-1 and Boise ends up going 8-4, right? And then I don't know how the American is going to shake out. Like I don't know how Charlotte's looking this year, to be completely honest with you. But it's like I said, Memphis has notoriously been good. Tulane, I know for a fact, is good.
Yeah,
because
Tulane's
I've seen
great.
them play twice, and they probably have a top 10 coach in the country that's somehow still coaching at Tulane.
Yeah,
Scott Strickland, if you're listening, make a call. But if it's when you look at USF, they don't play Tulane in the regular season, right? So they're going to have to that could be like a pre-playoff game, right? If they both meet up in the American Conference Championship, which would be cinema to see that, to be completely honest with you. But like for USF, you're kind of rooting for the traditional powers to be good. Like even North Texas looks good so far. You know what I mean? Like people are looking at North Texas as like a sleeper, and USF plays them. USF plays Memphis. But if you're looking at like Charlotte, FAU, UTSA, who I said took Texas to the wire, and they did. But you look at some of these. Oh, they didn't take Texas, and they played Texas A&M. But anyway, Texas played some crappy other school from Texas, and UTEP. But I said UTEP, not UTSA. You're right. But anyway, what I'm getting to this point and saying that the American is a little bit up this year if you look from years past. So I think that kind of strengthens USF position if they take care of business.
Yeah, I think the American Conference has a very good chance. The tough part is that these American Conference teams that are pretty good might end up beating up on each other, and then the committee looks at that, and then they say, "Oh, well, they lost 3 or 4 games this year. How can we let them in the college football playoff?" And then the American Conference champion doesn't end up in the college football playoff. That's what I hope doesn't happen, but it is a realistic possibility where USF loses to Memphis and North Texas, and then it's one of those things where it's tough. But if USF goes undefeated in American Conference play, it's going to be tough to keep them out of the college football playoff. Honestly, kind of regardless of whether they win the conference or not. But then again, like we're saying, it's the brand over play thing. So then again, it could very well happen. But shifting our focus a little bit to the rest of the school's athletics. The women's soccer team, they took down Grambling 6-0. They've been cooking lately. I think that's their 3rd straight win. So that's some really exciting stuff. Just to shout out the women's soccer team. They've been doing really, really well. But for shifting our focus back to the football team after that little side quest, they're playing South Carolina State this weekend. They have sort of the FCS. I don't want to call them a cupcake team. I always feel bad calling the D2 cupcakes team because they're
for a reason. USF's paying them to come. Exactly. So if you're getting paid to play, then I think it's okay to call them a cupcake.
Right. That's a fair point.
I think Florida played USF to play, so I don't know when you get to that. Right. Anyway, I think it's fair to call it a cupcake.
That's fair. Yeah. So it's their cupcake opponent. If you play college football, the video game, it's the FCS Southeast. Although these aren't last year was the Pandas. I don't remember what FCS Southeast.
I think one's like the Sharks or something.
That's it. The Sharks. Yeah. Because the FCS East team is the Judicials.
Oh yeah.
Know that. Yeah. Because they run the option. So I always play them because then you can anyways, we're getting into college football video game talk. But South Carolina State, a lesser opponent for sure. So what can USF do to sort of build upon this successful start? Because after this opponent, then they have a bye week and then they start conference play. Then they play Charlotte at home and then they get into it. So what do you look for teams when they play these types of games? Like UF played Long Beach State in, I think, week 1. How do you what do you think this team should do in terms of building upon their successful start?
First, I want to say having a game in September in the state of Florida at noon should be a war crime. I feel like every game should be a night game, especially if you play kind of teams like this. Like a noon game at Ray J on Saturday is going to be brutal. Yeah, but hopefully it's overcast or something to get you guys out of it. But I look to see domination on the line of scrimmage. You heard me say over the course of these 3-4 weeks, line of scrimmage. Because I think the line of scrimmage play is so important going forward. And USF has not only competed there, they've been very good at the line of scrimmage against these bigger name teams. I hope to continue to see that. Like I said, they ran for like 1.4 yards per carry against Miami. Can we up that? Can we get 6 yards a carry against South Carolina State? That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm looking for Byron Brown to not have to play in the second half, to be completely honest with you. Not have to play in the fourth quarter. He's been getting pounded by these these teams. Get him off his feet, get some other starters off their
Mhm.
feet. Whether it's Schuler or Harris on the defense, who's been fantastic this season.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for USF not to have a letdown, not to have this be like 14-3 at halftime. That
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
For
Mhm.
them to be in control, do their job, and then get some of the guys that don't normally play in there during the fourth quarter and be healthy going to the bye week, and then get ready to start American play, because I'm pretty sure they start American play. I just had their schedule pulled up a minute ago. They start American play against Charlotte. We've talked about Charlotte a lot. So,
Yeah, the
um,
49ers, yeah.
you get a bye and then Charlotte, and then you play at North Texas, which was one of your two biggest games of the year
Yeah,
left forward. So, dominant line of scrimmage. Don't be up 7-3 at halftime or something like that, 14-8
right.
or some funky score. Like, go take
Yeah.
care of business, and then get healthy for some of the bigger games that are coming down the chute.
Yeah, absolutely, 'cause, knock on every
Yeah.
freaking wood surface you can, unlike the Bucks, they've actually been pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bucks have been brutal.
Mhm.
Yeah, to come out 2-1 out of this stretch and to also have all of your players be healthy is miraculous. Like, I don't think, like, obviously 3-0 would have been perfect, but I really don't think you could have pictured a better start for USF, frankly, to set themselves up. And like you said, going into this game, as long as they can get some guys some rest, then they can really kind of ride this momentum into conference play, because the first 3 weeks you're getting up because you're playing the big time games, the big time teams, but conference play, that's equally big time, because
Yeah.
these are the games that matter. Like, if they would have gone 0-3, there's still they still could have gone undefeated in conference play and won the
Yeah.
American, and nobody would have been disappointed at all. But at this point now, it's like, okay, now y'all gotta win this conference, because otherwise it's kind of a letdown, especially considering this start. But I wanted to talk about maybe some backups that we're hopefully going to see play a lot. We'll start at the quarterback position. Gaston Moore, transfer from Tennessee. He came in at the very last, well, I don't want to say the very last, but pretty much the last minute, right before the season, after Bryce Archie got drafted by the Cincinnati Reds. So he's going to play baseball. Good for Bryce. Bryce
Yeah.
was the starter for most of the year last year, but now the new backup is Gaston Moore. So I'd assume that that's sort of the guy that they put in, although we could very well see, oh my goodness, Marcellus Tate. He's another kind of, I think he's a sophomore. I don't know if he was redshirted last year or not, but yeah, you could see him. He's sort of a pro style quarterback, but Gaston Moore, I'd imagine they want to get him some playing time. Because he came out in the Miami game towards the end when things were out of hand. So he's very familiar with Alex Golish's offense. So I'd assume that he's the guy that's next up. Are there any other backups that you're looking at to sort of make some noise maybe in the second half?
Yeah, Rodney Hill was the guy that
Love Rodney Hill.
probably, a two-way guy. And it's weird when people first coming in, Hill's a freshman, but in the terms of the transfer portal, like Gaston, who you talk about, he's like a 6-year senior or
Right.
something crazy. You know what I mean? Like, he was the backup to he's a 5th-year senior. He's a backup to Nico last year at Tennessee.
Mhm.
Nico, who Emile Ava, who is terrible, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that speaks to
UCLA.
Gaston more. But I'm just
Right.
kidding. But yeah, and the fact that you have to go out and get someone that you trust to be your backup
Mhm.
because of the way that Byron Bound plays, right?
Yes,
So I think you're right.
100%.
The fact that you can get him reps in a game situation in this offense. Yes, he's familiar with Golish's offense. Golish was the offense coordinator at Tennessee while he
Mhm.
was there for a time. They crossed paths, but still, like, Golish doesn't have the exact same plays verbatim, same exact playbook, all 100 whatever plays that he did when Gaston Moore was a freshman at Tennessee. You know what I mean? And
Right.
you can rep it all the time in practice, but there's nothing that beats real game reps. So yeah, those are the two names that I'm kind of looking for. Anytime you see kind of two-way player, since the whole Travis Hunter explosion, you get a little bit excited. But obviously, we don't have a Travis Hunter at USF. But yeah, in a game that's going to be like this, those are some of the names that I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I love the Rodney Hill shout out, because he is probably one of the most like athletic linebackers USF has in terms of like speed and stuff like that. And like you said, the two-way status out of high school. I think he played running back in high school, but he played quite a bit last season. He appeared in, I think, 13 games, and he played in a lot against Southern Miss and Bethune-Cookman, sort of the two blowout games, if you will, from last year. So he's probably the next man up once Mac Harris and Schuler head out, which I believe it's both of their last seasons. So Rodney Hill, getting him some playing time is going to be huge, especially for his development, because, theoretically, fingers crossed, hopefully he won't have to play very much for the rest of the year because Schuler and Harris have those two linebacker spots locked down. But some other names I wanted to shout out: Jonathan Eccles, sophomore tight end. Haven't seen a lot of him, honestly. It's been kind of a bit of a letdown because he was a 4-star. Like, he was sort of their big get in last year's, or the year before last year's recruiting class. Alex Golish's first, and he only played 2 games last year, which is fine. It's his freshman season, but he hasn't gotten a lot of action so far this year. I was kind of expecting him to maybe back up Wyatt Sullivan, the transfer that's starting at tight end right now, but it's sort of been Sullivan and Weston Wolf mostly, and so I'm hoping that Jonathan Eccles can get a little bit more playing time this weekend, because, man, he's super athletic, super talented. He was an edge rusher at the IMG Academy right down the road. So the hope is that, once Sullivan and Wolf, leave, then Eccles is sort of the next man up, sort of like Rodney Hill. And then Nakai Davenport, he's a running back, redshirt freshman, 3-star recruit out of high school. So not nearly as highly touted as Eccles, but he's been playing a good bit more than Eccles. He's gotten some touches the first few weeks, and the running back position, they love to shift guys in and out. That's the goalish offense. They're pedal to the metal, so they have to get fresh guys in there kind of every drive. And obviously Cartavius Norton and Alvin Isaac have been the 2 sort of lead backs so far to start the season, but you want to get them rest, want to get them off their feet, not taking those hits. So Davenport is probably going to be the guy that gets a lot of carries in that second half, assuming things go to plan, of course. But just wanted to shout out some backups, because I know USF, they got Byron Brown, they got Mac Harris, Schuler, and Singleton, the star wide receiver, and Nimrod. Like, they've got a lot of really great players, but they've also got some fun backups, even if they're not Miami or UF future NFL players. They're still, they're D1 athletes. Like, they're very impressive in their own right. But now I wanted to shift the topic to a little bit of a kind of a downer, if you will. Alex Golish obviously has had an immensely successful start to his time at USF as a head coach. I know going 7-6 for 2 straight seasons doesn't sound great, but compared to where USF was before he got there, it's such a massive 180 type of flip around. And now they've got these 2 wins against 2 top 25 teams. So a lot of people are talking about, Alex Golish, he's jumping ship. Like, he's going to get hired by a bigger program, which very well may be. But how likely do you find it that Alex Golish actually does jump ship, assuming that USF continues this momentum and has another really solid season? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it has to be the right job for him. I think he's in the position where he can pick his kind of spot. Like, if Virginia Tech comes calling, I don't think he's going to Virginia Tech, for example, not to pile on, or like UCLA even. Actually, UCLA is a little bit different. They have a lot of resources there. But with the new stadium coming, with the buy-in to USF football, I think that it's going to have to take him like a Florida job, or if the season goes down the drain at Auburn, right? If they end up, Hugh Freeze kind of the hot seat, that kind of job, in order to kind of pry him away from USF, because when you're talking G5, some G5 jobs are better than Power 4 jobs, so I think it's really going to take the right job, and it might not be this year, it might be next year, but I don't think 10 years from now Alex Golish is going to be here, for example. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But
it's reality.
I think so. The Tulane's coach, he had the opportunity to leave this past year, but he didn't. He was similar into Alex Golish, where he had the opportunity to kind of pick where he wants to go, and none of the jobs last year interest him. And this time around, I'm sure there's going to be one that does it at a SEC type school, and he's going to go. So I think Alex Golish might take that similar path. It might be different if USF makes the playoffs. A team might, fire a coach to bring him in, for example. But yeah, like, I don't think he's going to be at USF long term. But I don't think he's going to go be the head coach at, like, no offense to Missouri, but like Missouri, for example. Like, I think it's going to be a high profile kind of job for him.
Yeah, and I certainly hope so. Because, I mean, we saw it with Willie Taggart, where he kind of jumped ship for Oregon and then jumped ship there to FSU, and it's kind of like, he clearly wanted the FSU job, but he probably left USF a year too early. I think it would have been beneficial for him to stick around and kind of finish out that career at USF and then go to FSU maybe, but who knows, he might've been screwed there anyways. But it was definitely kind of tough to see that happen. So I'd hate for that to happen with Alex Golish too. And like you said, it's definitely one of those things where he's going to have sort of his pick, especially like you said, if things continue to go well. Yeah, and I was surprised the Tulane coach didn't leave because they had Hughes and Mensah who left. Mensah went to Duke, who they beat this past weekend, and Hughes went to Oregon, sort of their two superstar caliber players. So I was a bit surprised, and maybe hopefully Golish kind of takes that same kind of route, because I know he's an Ohio State guy, I believe. I think that's his alumni. So maybe maybe his long-term goal is to wait for Ryan Day to retire.
That'll be a while.
Yeah, exactly. That will definitely be a while. Yes, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of a pipe dream, but you never know. So yeah, I'm definitely with you. I do think that Golish seems to have a good head on his shoulders, and he does outwardly seem committed to USF. Obviously, every coach is going to be that way, but it is exciting, especially because USF could be moving to a bigger conference. They could be pulling the UCF route. And, we've seen UCF bring back Scott Frost from he went to Nebraska. Things didn't pan out. He came back. So, yeah, it's definitely a possibility that maybe they move on to a bigger conference, and Alex Golish doesn't feel the need to jump ship unless it's a big time school, like you said. So, hopefully that's going to be what ends up happening, but we'll see. So we're nearing the end of our episode, but before we go, I did want to get a prediction from you. I know it's kind of a weird, it's an FCS school, so it's probably going to be a weird score, but still wanted to get a prediction from you. How much do you think hopefully USF wins by?
Yeah, I get something in the realm like 42-3. I think they'll take care of business 48-3. If this USF team is what I think they are. Now, if they're a little bit different, it could be 31-17. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm banking that they are the team that I think they are, that we've seen through 3 weeks. And, they're going to look at the Miami game and say, oh, wow. And crazy to say how much, what was the final score, like 48-12 or whatever, as much as it's crazy to say 49-12. But as much as it's crazy to say that game was closer than 49-12, there was like that huge rain delay. And USF was competitive in that game for a long time. So I do think that they're going to come through, take care of business, and win by at least 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I hope so, because I'll be at the game, and man, it'll be kind of a dark cloud if USF doesn't just go out and take care of business. They have played Bethune-Cookman, I think, 2 straight years now to start the Alex Golish era, and they've done that. They haven't played with their food, so to speak. Last year, the whole story was like, oh, well, who's going to come in after Byram? Like, who's going to, and it was just Bryce Archie. It was fine. But so I'll be curious to see those storylines play out, because, Golish can be kind of, he can be kind of weird with that kind of thing. We saw it a lot with the Byron Brown injury last year. He kind of hid that a lot, but regardless, it should be a fun game. I'm going to go, I think USF wins. I think they win 45-13. I don't know. It's so hard to predict these scores with the FCS teams because in college football in general, but especially when they're playing D2 or D3 schools. But I think they take care of business. It should be a fun second half to watch some guys that we don't normally get to see. Sort of almost a spring training vibe, if you will, like getting to see a lot of backups maybe. So that's the hope. And if that happens, then cool, that'll be great. And if not, we'll have something to talk about next week, because we will be back next week regardless. Really appreciate y'all for tuning in. Thank you to my co-host Jonathan for making my job incredibly easy. We'll be back next week, so definitely stay tuned. Hit that like and subscribe button if you like what you heard. We'll see you next week. And as always, go Bulls.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.